Hi, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from StreetScores, and as you can see, we're going to tackle two major topics today. I also have something super random at the end of the video to laugh at Caleb Williams about, but the main two topics we're going to discuss are apparently the Washington Commanders trying to trade Brian Robinson before week 1. We're going to dive into that rumor. I want to emphasize rumor. We're going to dive into that and why it could and why it could not make sense for the Washington Commanders. We're going to look at it from both angles. Also, we have a Terry McLaurin update and number. John Com did a full in-depth article on the whole Terry McLaurin contract situation and even updated us on the numbers that he's hearing right now. But it's like a full comprehensive breakdown. I'm going to kind of bounce around and read a lot of the article to y'all, but not all of it. So I encourage y'all to go check it out yourselves. But he breaks it down by age, precedent, leverage, new ownership. It's like all sorts of categories. It's a full in-depth thing. We're going to get into all of that and more, but before we do, make sure you still follow that like button, still follow the subscription button, and still follow the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Appreciate y'all for supporting the videos, man. Make sure y'all stay tuned for more content. Make sure y'all go get y'all tickets to the live Commanders King show, man. We are getting really close to running out, man, so definitely go make sure you book those for that August 24th live in-person show that we'll be doing, man. We're gonna have great production and everything, and if you can't make it to the show, you can also donate as well to the same link, so make sure you go get your tickets. Link is in the description of this video and pretty much any video I've done for like the past couple of weeks. And let's go ahead and dive into this video right now, man. Let's get it. Adam. All right, so let's start with the Brian Robinson update first, or rumor, report, whatever you want to say. Take this source with a grain of salt, and he even says it himself to basically take it with a grain of salt. But I feel like this is an interesting discussion to have. You know, like I typically do, I try to give y'all the heads up. Sometimes I forget to give the disclaimer in every video that we break down where the source isn't necessarily reliable. We're here to dive into why it would or would not make sense for the Commanders, like especially from our point of view. We're not here to dive into whether this source is correct, if this source is trustworthy, or nothing like that. We are not here for that. I'm purely here for analysis. For if this is true, big, huge ifs. Let's get that out the way early, you know, so I'm not trying to get y'all 15 minutes into this video and then at the end say, but it's, you know, maybe it's not likely, maybe this wasn't true. I'm letting you know right now. So we're here for purely logic analysis. So just to go ahead and give y'all the heads up. But Commanders insider Ben Standig shares a hot take that running back Brian Robinson won't be on the week 1 roster. His exact quote from his podcast, and he just started a new Substack, so I would highly suggest y'all go subscribe to that and read that because he goes into more in depth there. But he said, I'm going to guess Brian Robinson is not on the week 1 roster. I have no insight to that. But if Krosky Merritt is on this team, I just don't know how you're sitting him, unquote. So that sounds more so like a compliment to Krosky Merritt and how great he's looked so far this offseason, even including the preseason, to where if he's healthy and if he makes the roster, because some people, I guess, feel like that even though he was 5th on the depth chart, they feel like he may actually for real be 5th on the depth chart from the unofficial one that they came out with before that Patriots preseason game and joint practice and all of that. But honestly, he's at least 3rd, I would say, at worst 4th. Like, he's definitely at least ahead of Chris Rodriguez. I think he's already ahead of Jeremy McNichols. And to Ben Standig's point, he's saying if Krosky Merritt makes the final 53-man roster, he's just too explosive, too agile, too quick, too fast to keep off of that field. And basically, at that point, Ben Standig is insinuating that Brian Robinson is replaceable, at the very least expendable. Like, if you can get some trade value for him, you might as well go ahead and do that. So again, he's saying he doesn't have any insight to that. He hasn't necessarily heard anything from the Commanders, but he's a reporter that goes to all of the practices and everything like that. He's one of the people that's as close as you could possibly get to the Commanders, media credentials and all of that type of stuff. He's saying that he's going to guess that Brian Robinson is not here week 1. So I don't exactly know what he's hearing and where because maybe he does have some information that, or something, some whispers that he heard, but he can't put that source out there. He can't act like he actually knows or heard that. He has to kind of put it in a way to where he's just kind of guessing. I'm predicting, you know what I'm saying? Some people will pull that move to kind of keep their sources ominous, but I don't know. I'm here to dive into the logic. So even though I'd be really happy that means that Ja'Cory Cross-Merritt is going to play a lot. Like, if we did end up trading Brian Robinson before week 1, that would mean that Ja'Cory has shown them plenty enough to become RB1. That means he's done even better in these training camp practices than even just the slice of him that we got from that preseason game. Like, he's doing even better than what we've heard and what I've reported to y'all and shown y'all in the clips and training camp practice breakdowns. Because Brian Robinson has had a pretty good camp as well. So, like, if Ja'Cory's done so well to outplay that, that's really interesting. Because it's not like Brian Robinson will be traded because we're just sick of him and he had a bad camp. Like, he's having a pretty good camp. He's even improved in certain ways from what I've heard and seen at training camp so far. So it looks like he's potentially going into being the best version of Brian Robinson that we've ever seen. But back to my main point. I'd be worried about this situation because JCM is currently dealing with a shoulder injury right now. They say it's nothing crazy, and you could kind of tell that, I mean, I guess it wasn't because he went through Monday's walkthrough. But even though he did have to miss the scrimmage that we had on Tuesday because it was full pads and full contact, he was still out there. There were a couple of guys like Ja'Cory Cross-Merritt and Tyler Owens that were at least out there and dressed. They just didn't actually play in the scrimmage. But then, of course, you had certain guys that didn't play at all. Yeah, Marcus Mariota, Samuel Cosme, Terry McLaurin. Then you had like even a recent Jonathan Jones and guys like that. You had certain guys that may have been there but had no chance of playing. They didn't even like dress up. They were just in normal hoodie and shirts or whatever. But Ja'Cory and Tyler Owens were at least in some sort of like I can play right now gear. They just didn't. So maybe there's like those are signs of like who's far away from returning, who's close to being healthy enough to play, and we're just being precautionary right now. And then of course who's healthy enough to actually play in the scrimmage. So there's different levels to this injury stuff. And even so at the same time, if they feel like they can trade B.Rob and we'll still be straight, then JCM must be healthier than what it looks right now. So again, I think they are probably being precautionary. But at the same time, going back to the other side of the argument, if you're trying to win a Super Bowl right now, why would you trade away talent? I mean, I know Brian Robinson isn't just this, oh my Lord, there's no way we can win a Super Bowl without him this year type of talent. But I mean, draft picks don't even help you in 2025. Brian Robinson can help you more in 2025 than any draft pick could right now, unless you can parlay that into another trade to get a different player. So you trade Brian Robinson for, say, some imaginary pick, and then you finesse that pick into like another package of picks that you add onto yourself that are the Commanders' natural picks, and then maybe you get a really good player that can help you win in 2025. But that's it 2025 wise. Now, of course, trading Brian Robinson for a pick would be like, wow, I can't believe we got anything for him. This could be beneficial long term, but 2025 wise, it doesn't help you. I mean, Von Miller pulled up to get a ring this year. He's not here for trading away starting level talent. I'm not saying Brian Robinson is elite starting level talent, but Brian Robinson is a starting level running back in the NFL. Von Miller is not here for you to trade away starting level talent while he's here. We're trying to win a Super Bowl right now. You better load up every way that you possibly can to go win right now. Because say what you want about B.Rob, trading him away makes the team worse on the field this season. Because at the very least, outside of that one Eagles game, he doesn't fumble. Like, you at least got to give him that. Also, he's becoming a better pass protector. I've already said several times he's an underrated receiving back. And he's apparently even improved his vision this offseason and is having a really good camp, like I mentioned earlier. From what I've seen, what I've heard from a lot of people going to the practices, this is arguably the best looking Brian Robinson we've ever seen in an offseason. So I'm hoping that some of that carries into the regular season. I'm hoping that's real and not just some random preseason hype. And even beyond that, even though I'm hopeful that JCM can become our RB1 as soon as possible, I still want it to be a running back by committee so that we don't run JCM into the ground, especially with him being this young and things like that. And again, he's already dealing with a shoulder issue just after only around 5 carries against the Patriots in the preseason game and 2 receptions with one of them being called back. Already was dealing with some type of shoulder injury. So we're going to need his explosion and his insane agility and all of that athleticism that he brings that no other running back in this room brings, that's really going to put pressure on defenses. We need him healthy and doing that type of stuff for the playoffs. So giving some carries to B.Rob and Austin Eckler every game will help with that, to keep JCM healthy and durable for the long term. Again, I would love JCM to go out there and be RB1, but even if best case scenario, he's RB1 today, which I doubt. I think Brian Robinson is still your starting running back today. Even though JCM has shown a lot of great things, we still got to see about JCM's ability to pass protect, and that's really going to eat into his snaps. If he can't pass protect, if Brian Robinson, and of course Austin Ekeler is one of the best pass protecting running backs in the entire NFL and easily the best on this team. If those guys are better pass protectors than, and even Jeremy McNichols, than JCM, that's going to eat into his snaps. You can't have JCM out there putting Jaden Daniels on a plate by not being able to pass protect for him. There's a blitzing linebacker. It's not even just about physical ability. It's about IQ awareness, and sometimes it takes time. I mean, Travion Henderson is one of the very few running backs I've seen in years that can come out day one elite pass protecting running back. That is extremely rare. A lot of the times it takes experience of doing it over and over again to get the IQ awareness and reaction speed to, like, even pre-snap to diagnose who may be blitzing, and then after the ball is snapped to be able to find the random guy that the offensive line may not pick up or may be losing against. You know, it may not even necessarily be a responsibility thing. An offensive lineman may have just gotten whooped on that play, and so it was unforeseen, and now you got to react quickly to that. I'm not sure if JCM has that in his bag yet, so that's going to eat into his snaps. You know what I'm saying? Doesn't matter how explosive you are and how great you are with running the ball and receiving the ball. And he looked really good receiving the ball, man. He made catching the ball look so easy and natural in that Patriots preseason game, but he's not going to get a lot of snaps anyway if he can't protect the most important part of this team, and that's Jaden Daniels. We got to see, though. I'm not saying that he can't. I just haven't seen it enough for the Cliff Kingsbury to trust him enough to keep throwing them out there all the time over and over again. But again, I would love for him to be your RB1, but man, don't give him too many carries before we get to like the postseason, and then we really need his explosion to take advantage of some opposing defenses out there that may be susceptible to some speed or so that jump cutting ability he has. His contact balance is insane, and then on top of that, you know, by the time we get towards the end of the season, we're gonna go against some banged up defenses that may be missing a couple of starters and things like that, and he may be able to take advantage of that better than anybody else in this room, especially because of that freakish athleticism. I mean, he has the best natural God-given talent in the running back room easily. I don't even think it's close. It's just all about the nuance and technical refinement stuff as far as him improving and getting better and being a consistent running back that can be on the field very often. Now, I don't think that it's very likely that Brian Robinson even gets re-signed next year after this season is over, with this being the last year of his contract. But I also don't see him being let go or traded this season, especially before week one. Like, that would be crazy. And even if they did find a way to trade him, what would we even get? A 26-year-old running back that has a tendency to only really give you like a really good 8 to 10 first games of the season, and after that he's typically banged up, and then he's on the last year of his contract. That's the worst part about it. A running back on the last year of his contract, even without any of the previous context that I gave you to make the situation even worse, to even devalue him even further as far as trade value goes, like that alone, bad. And so maybe you might be able to get a 10th round pick for him or something like that. I don't know what you could even get for Brian Robinson. But at the same time, this organization is very unpredictable, and they have gotten unexpected value in return for previous guys that they traded last year. I didn't expect for us to get as much value as we got out of Sam Howell, out of Jahan Dotson and things like that. So who knows? Maybe they can find some way to finesse Brian Robinson into some actual draft pick that exists. Again, I'm just making up the 10th round pick at this point. We would have to go way back in NFL history, back to where we even had a 10th round for that to even be possible. But I just don't even see how you can get a 7th round pick out of anybody unless there's a team desperate for just a starting level running back right now. That's the only way you can get anything for Brian Robinson. So again, I agree that this is not very likely, but it's an interesting discussion, and I definitely want to hear how y'all feel about it in the comment section. Now moving on to the Terry McLaurin half of this video. According to a league source, they believe that the Commanders could eventually come to an agreement at $28 million per year for Terry McLaurin. That is great news, man. League sources also say that Washington does not want to pay McLaurin based off of his past performance, but instead how he'll produce at older ages. Shouts out to Marshall. He said, after reading Com's article, hard to blame the team for their stance. I'm also very much for Terry getting his money. As one exec in the article says, at ages 31, 32, and 33, the payment usually exceeds the production. So Marshall's predicting a glorified, possibly 2-year deal coming soon. It may be like 3 years with like a void year at the end or something like that. That's why he's saying like a glorified 2-year deal. Or maybe it's 3, even 4 years, but like guaranteed money-wise, maybe it's really only a for real 2-year deal that they can get out of by year 3. But either way, all of that came from this John Com article that he wrote yesterday titled, "Why the Commanders, wide receiver Terry McLaurin, are at an impasse." And so again, like I previewed and foreshadowed before the intro, he breaks this down in a lot of different sections. Like the first section is just like a full background breakdown of what's going on right now. He said, entering the final season of his 3-year deal he signed in 2022, and Washington remains at an impasse on a possible contract extension for Daniels' #1 target. McLaurin has voiced his frustration, held out, held in. Technically, he was placed on the physically unable to perform list with an ankle injury, but of course we all know that's fake. And finally, on July 31st, requested a trade. Nothing has boosted momentum towards a deal, and with the season approaching, and Washington hoping to build on a breakout 2024, the question is why? One league source said that he could see the Commanders eventually agreeing to $28 million per year, but would that be enough? According to various reports and multiple sources, DK Metcalf's contract has served as a guide for McLaurin, though whether in terms of average per year, $33 million, or total guarantees, $60 million, remains uncertain. Which side of the DK Metcalf deal is Terry McLaurin using as a reference point? And if you already know, Adam Peters and those guys are not using that. They're looking at the Courtland Sutton deal, and we just got to meet somewhere in the middle, I guess. McLaurin and Metcalf were in the same draft class and have comparable NFL stats, even though McLaurin is, I feel like, obviously the better player, but I just feel like the Steelers overpaid for DK Metcalf, and now we're being punished for it. Whatever happens along the way, Commanders general manager Adam Peters said last month, just understand he's a great player and we want to keep him here, unquote. Now, here's why the two sides seem far apart. So this is where we go through the sections, starting with age. John Com said, this likely remains the biggest sticking point because it frames the argument for Washington. McLaurin will turn 30 on September 15th, which means he'd be 31 when an extension begins. The Commanders rely heavily on analytics, and the numbers aren't kind to receivers at that age. According to ESPN research, over the past 5 seasons, only 3 receivers 31 years or older have played at least 10 games and averaged 70-plus receiving yards per game. 6 have averaged 60-plus. That's not a good look, man. The stats are definitely working heavily against Terry McLaurin. You know this team has become very statistics-based since Josh Harris has taken over, and even though Adam Peters is a super football guy and he prefers to not use analytics, the rest of the team is extremely analytics based. Lance Newmark is, Brandon Sosna is, like basically both of Adam Peters' right hand men from the football side and the business side and stuff like that. And we've hired so many analytics guys, so of course they know this information. They know information even beyond that that's like they're probably utilizing in their cases the why like McLaurin. We would love to, but man, I mean, stats show that like nobody really beats the clock like that. Nobody beats Father Time, dog. And it's not looking good for if we pay you this amount of money that you're ever going to live up to that amount of money that you're hitting us for, cap space and all that type of stuff. A handful of notable receivers saw a drop off in the season after turning 31. Julio Jones went from 96.2 yards per game to 39.5. DeAndre Hopkins went from 77.9 to 50.5. My Georgia dog, AJ Green, went from 80.2 to 34.2. And Andre Johnson went from 79.1 to 63.8. We're talking about whatever's going on at that age 31. It's not pretty. And again, Terry McLaurin is going to be 30 by the time we get early into this regular season. McLaurin has averaged 65.8 yards per game since entering the NFL as a third-round pick. His numbers might have been held back by subpar quarterback play in his first five seasons. I agree. But last year with Daniels, he actually posted his third lowest average yardage per game, which was 64.5. In part because of the rookie's ability to spread the ball around, which is a good point. Like, Jaden Daniels is such an elite quarterback, and he doesn't necessarily have to rely on Terry McLaurin for him to be able to complete passes like some other quarterbacks do with their number one receivers. And when in doubt, that number one receiver is getting 15 targets a game, and I'll just even throw it to him double teamed. Jaden Daniels doesn't do that with Terry McLaurin, so that does kind of work against Terry McLaurin's stats, but still, McLaurin finished with a career best 13 touchdowns in 2024, including 10 in the red zone. Both numbers were second highest in the NFL behind Cincinnati Bengals' Jamar Chase with 17 touchdowns. McLaurin's counter to the age concern is that he is entering only his 7th season and didn't play a lot during his first 2 years at Ohio State. Just like I said in previous videos for the last few weeks, really over a month now. And mind you, Jones, 9th year, Hopkins, 10th, Johnson, 9th, and AJ Green, 8th, all deeper into their careers. So that stat that I brought up earlier, yeah, age-wise, it could compare, but as far as years of actually playing in the NFL, there's a difference. So the mileage on McLaurin's legs is not as heavy as those receivers. He also has been durable, playing in 73 straight NFL games, including the postseason, since 2020, and has never had a major surgery. I feel like that's an important emphasis from Terry McLaurin's side, is I'm different from those guys. One former NFL receiver said what slowed him down post-30 was the accumulation of surgeries. But with age, he said, comes wisdom, the ability to read defenses quicker, which allows a wideout to win on a route even better, even with their maybe declining athleticism. I felt like that was a great point. I'm not dismissing age completely, McLaurin said last month. There are data points that support that, but how come it's not okay to say this may be a different case? Based on what he's proven, showing no signs of deterioration, I feel that should be acknowledged as well. People are making it seem like I need to start getting fitted for a walker and a cane, Terry McLaurin said. But teams don't pay older receivers the same as they do younger ones. According to Spotrac, of the 24 active receivers guaranteed the most money, only one, Miami's Tyreek Hill, was 30 or older upon signing. However, Hill has just turned 30 following consecutive seasons of more than 1,700 receiving yards. Once they hit 30, more times than not, the money is more than the production, one former NFL executive said, before adding that McLaurin's game should age well, though. So it's always this back and forth of like, okay, Adam Peters could bring this up, but Terry McLaurin could bring this up. And I feel like John Com worded this very well. And I really want to emphasize to y'all, please go check out this article and read it, because I'm only giving y'all like maybe a third or half of it. I'm not reading all of it at all. I'm just trying to go through and find some of the major points, but I just don't want to steal all of John Com's content. So please go to ESPN and read this article for yourself, because I'm skipping through a lot of important context here, just getting you some of the general most important stuff. Washington, however, doesn't want to pay Terry McLaurin. Now we're moving on to the precedent part of this. For past performance. According to league sources, instead, the franchise is trying to pay him based on how it thinks he will perform at ages 31, 32, and 33. That makes sense. This is logic. This is business. I know it feels like we should pay Terry McLaurin for what he's gone through with all of the bad quarterbacks and stuff like that. But Adam Peters is coming in here like, that's not my fault. The first year I got here, I gave you Jada Daniels, so don't be mad at me. You need to go get that money in retribution from Ron Rivera and Dan Snyder and those guys. That has nothing to do with me, and we're trying to pay you based on what you're going to do and not what you did before I got here, which makes sense. That's how a GM is supposed to operate. That's what we were asking for a GM that was smart enough and cold enough to operate in that way. It just sucks because you just do feel like Terry McLaurin should maybe be the exception, but at the end of the day, this is what we wanted, this is what we needed, and this is why we went from 4 wins to 14 so quickly, because Adam Peters is a genius. He knows what he's doing. I just hope that we somehow find a mutual contract situation, number, whatever, please. But going back to John Com, the Commanders also have several key players up for extensions next offseason, and Daniels potentially after that. Left tackle Laramie Tunsil and linebacker Frankie Louvu headline the 2026 group. Both could be in line for big raises. If cornerback Marshawn Lattimore rebounds from an injury-plagued season, he could be in line for an extension as well. Wide receiver Deebo Samuel will be a free agent after this season, but if he produces, he could be another veteran that the team wants to re-sign. As those potential deals loom, Washington doesn't want to set a precedent with McLaurin of paying what it perceives to be too much. I've already told y'all this. This could be a slippery slope. You pay Terry McLaurin more than what the market value says he should go for. Now everybody's going to ask for more than what the market value says I deserve. And it's just we're going to just constantly keep having to slightly overpay guys forever now. It's going to literally set a tone. It's going to be a slippery slope. Washington has 44 players under contract for 2026. Just to let you know, that's the fewest in the entire NFL. We're pretty much like a mercenary, kill for hire team right now. Like, we just have a bunch of guys on the last year of their deal, on a 1-year deal. It's crazy. I mean, again, the fewest in the NFL players under contract for next season as of right now. Also, the Commanders have 32 players signed through 2027, which is the second fewest. That's just the way Adam Peters has been constructing this roster. In other words, they're going to have to spend to fill a lot of spots. Peter has told people that his goal isn't just to build a roster that can win a Super Bowl in the current window. With Daniels on a rookie contract, he wants to build one to win every single year. And I agree with that. That's how you're supposed to look at this. Now, moving on to the leverage part of this video. Washington needs McLaurin on the field. He was Daniels' favorite downfield target. The quarterback averaged 13.4 air yards per attempt to McLaurin, and 6 of his 12 passes that gained 30 yards or more went to the wideout. Daniels posted a 90.6 quarterback rating on a 100 scale when targeting Terry McLaurin. He's the heartbeat of the team, said one NFL assistant coach who spent time in Washington during McLaurin's tenure. All of this provides leverage for McLaurin. It's no secret that Washington is better with him on the field, and the Commanders don't have another receiver like him on the roster at all. Even Noah Brown's hurt right now. It's Deebo Samuel and really friends with Jalen Lane out there flashing at times, but outside of that, I mean, Luke McCaffrey was with the starting the offense when it came to that scrimmage that we did. It was Deebo Samuel, Jalen Lane, and Luke McCaffrey. That's not good, man. We need Noah Brown back healthy and Terry McLaurin back, because that's not good, man. I like Jalen Lane as a 4th receiver, not as a 2nd. Come on, man. Like, we got to do better. However, the Commanders have leverage of their own. McLaurin is under contract this season. If the two sides can't reach an agreement, he would have to play or forfeit his weekly game checks for each missed game. Based on a salary of $15.5 million, that would cost him $861,111 per week. He also gets a $50,000 roster bonus each week, in addition to having already received a $2.8 million roster bonus on the 5th day of the new league year in March. Washington could then franchise tag him for 2026 if they want, at a cost of which is expected to be like $30.4 million, or allow him to test the market to fully gauge his value. McLaurin options then become A, avoid risk and take a deal that could be between $50 to $60 million in guaranteed money and average around $28 million per year, or B, bet on himself for a possible bigger payday after the season. But again, I mean, we've already heard reports from like Matt Garafolo and guys that like there's not this huge market out there. It's not like the Commanders' phones have just been ringing and blowing up and booming since Terry McLaurin has requested his trade. So it's not like there are just a bunch of teams lining up to give Terry McLaurin whatever money he wants. I feel like if there were, we would have gotten some type of leak or at least a rumor about, oh, this team is willing to pay Terry McLaurin this much. So yes, the Commanders are tripping for only being willing and able to pay him this much. You know, like I feel like that would have been came out if that was a thing. So everybody's looking at Terry McLaurin like, dog, you're about to be 30. And I know you ain't thinking about trying to cash in on a big payday next year when you're turning 31. If that figure does hit $28 million per year with the right guarantees, will McLaurin risk passing that up for a potential bigger payday in the next offseason? I hope so, because he's only getting older. That's the whole problem we're having right now. The new ownership. And again, mind you, I'm skipping over most of the information, especially in this section, but really the entire article. So please, I urge you to go read the article if you really want all of the context. But John Com said, Josh Harris does not operate like Dan Snyder. Numerous people who have worked with Harris say he's involved, but will not meddle or make demands to complete a deal to win a headline like Dan Snyder used to do, nor will he cave to public pressure like Dan Snyder used to do. Instead, Peters in the front office will prepare a report for him, giving him what they view as comps for a player and explain their reasoning behind an offer. Harris will ask a lot of questions, and if he's not sold, request more information. He could be demanding in that regard, say multiple people who work for him, but it allows him to understand the decision making. He'll then leave the work to those he hired while staying aligned with them. So he wants to know what's going on and constantly stay updated, but he's not meddling and interfering with anything, which I absolutely love. That's the way it needs to be done. So now moving on from the John Com article, which again, just to throw it out there, I did not even read half of the information that he presented, so please go check that out. I thought Chad Forbes has an interesting tweet that also kind of echoes some of the things John Com said in his article. Chad Forbes said Terry McLaurin turns 30 in September. He's looking at figures that guys signed on their second contracts in their mid-20s. Realistically, his number should be closer to Cortland Sutton, which is $23 million per year, than Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, who are $40 and $35 million a year each. So ownership hired Adam Peters because he's smart and not emotional. That's all of the points that I'm bringing up. And I love Terry. And we're talking about mileage-wise. Yeah, maybe he's not that old, actually, like based on how he's been used. The fact that he was drafted into the NFL at age 24, where a lot of these guys were like 20, 21 and things like that. So I get it. But yeah, he's going into his third contract. He's going to turn 30. He should be closer to Cortland Sutton than he is those elite receivers. And then also, he's not Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson. I love him, but he's not those guys. And then also, Linnell Willingham did say on Rio Robinson's podcast, though, to kind of temper your worries about like Terry McLaurin actually wanting to be out of here and stuff like that. First of all, he pulled up to that scrimmage and was actually on the field for the first time ever. Like actually on the practice field with the players. First time ever since this whole Terry McLaurin whole holdout, hold-in trade request thing happened. So that was already monumental. Then we saw him talking to Adam Peters one-on-one publicly. And again, I feel like that had to have been by design. They could have been talking behind the scenes whenever they wanted without the cameras on them. Again, I really want to emphasize the fact that he talked to Adam Peters during the only small portion of that entire practice where the media were allowed to actually record and upload videos and photos to the internet to see. So that had to have been on purpose. They were fully aware of what they were doing, and maybe that's just a sign of things to come. But then on top of that, Linnell Willingham went on Rio Robinson's live stream, so make sure you please go check that out, because I'm only presenting this piece of information. Linnell Willingham and Rio Robinson, they dropped a bunch of gems, like a bunch of, wow, I didn't know that, Terry McLaurin things, and even just some general breakdowns of the practices and stuff that have been going on in training camp. But the one thing I did want to point out to kind of tease why you should definitely go check that out, Linnell Willingham dropped the bomb that he's heard that Jaden has been throwing to Terry McLaurin every day in the bubble, every single day. So that also further proves what ankle injury. Like, come on now, that's just a contract thing. That's just a facade just to make Terry McLaurin not look like the bad guy. But out of the way, that's really cool to hear that, you know, we've been worrying about, well, maybe hopefully Jaden Daniels doesn't lose chemistry with Terry McLaurin, but Terry McLaurin's not holding out like Jamar Chase did for the Bengals last year, where he literally had nothing to do with the organization. He refused to take part in anything football. He wasn't even catching passes from Joe Burrow behind the scenes or anything like that. He was completely cutting himself off from the team. Whereas Terry McLaurin catching passes from Jaden Daniels, just not participating in team drills. But I know Jaden Daniels has to be sick of throwing to the guys he's throwing to right now in team drills, with them dropping passes and stuff like that. And then also another reason for some optimism. I mean, I know James Cook signing his contract technically doesn't have anything to do with Terry McLaurin, but my point is, man, that was an ugly contract situation right there. That was a really ugly negotiation. I feel like, if anything, that situation was worse than Terry's, and somehow the Bills got that resolved. Shouts out to my Georgia dog James Cook getting that money. But shouts out to Jordan Schultz too. He said this was not an easy negotiation between the Bills and James Cook. There were endless twists and turns, but Buffalo valued the player and Cook wanted to stay. And who does that sound like? The Commanders want Terry. Terry clearly wants to stay. He's pulling up to the practices. He's practicing and catching passes from Jaden Daniels every day in the bubble, away from the media so that people can't see it. And that's why it took for Linnell Willingham to drop that bomb on Rio Robinson's stream. I really want to emphasize that, to go check that out, for anybody to know that it even happened. And then also, before we get up out of here, I'm seeing some clip of like the Bears moving in slow motion in a practice, because apparently the game is still too fast for Caleb Williams. I just wanted to throw that out there. I'm not sure if this clip is real, but I saw a clip of like the Bears practicing and everybody's like doing the slow marching thing as they're going through like their drills, as receivers are running their routes. Even as offensive linemen and defensive linemen are blocking, they're even going a little slow, but they're not really trying that hard. But the receivers are going super slow, and then the DBs are supposed to go slow with them. And I guess that's for Caleb Williams to be able to deal with the speed of NFL football. I don't know. That is crazy for him to be going into his second year doing that, where Jaden Daniels is using his VR to be able to speed the game up. If anything, he's going through practice way faster than games are. They're having to slow the game down for Caleb Williams, which is not good, because we're already in the preseason. It's not like this is like May or anything like that. Like, what's going on? So if that's true, I don't know if that clip is clickbaiting or anything like that, but that is scary stuff if I'm a Bears fan. If I'm Ben Johnson, I'm extremely worried that I even have to do that. But we'll see what happens, man. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know if you have everything discussed video. Please still follow that like button, still follow the subscription button, still follow the bell next to that subscription button, so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Really appreciate y'all for supporting every video. If you made it this far in the video, really appreciate you. Salute to you. Thank you personally. Of course, let me know in the comment section how you feel about the whole Brian Robinson situation. How do you feel about this whole Terry McLaurin situation? And also even the Caleb Williams thing. That is crazy. Let me know how you feel about all of this, man. Really appreciate y'all. Make sure y'all stay tuned. I'm gonna try my best to read and reply to as many comments as possible, because I'm really curious how y'all feel about both of these situations, especially the Brian Robinson one. So stay tuned. I'm gonna hit y'all with another video later, because we more than likely have a practice today that I gotta break down, and also we're trying out some safeties, and I believe we're gonna end up signing one, so I'll do a breakdown on that as well later on. So stay tuned and make sure you leave a like on the way out. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.